Welcome back to another Doctor Who Big Finish vinyl record review. Today we'll be taking a look at the most recent release as a part of the limited edition Big Finish vinyl collector's series. This time round, another 10th Doctor Volume 2 adventure starring David Tennant and Billie Piper, as written by Matt Fitton, featuring the return of the Ice Warriors in technically what should be the first new series Ice Warrior story. It is, of course, called Vengeance. Now, this is in fact episode 3 from the Volume 2 adventures, so far we've seen Infamy of Zaros, which is episode 1 of Volume 2, so therefore the only episode that we are yet to see in the vinyl format is in fact my favourite, being The Sword of the Cavalier. So yeah, it is a shame that the only one that we've not seen released is in fact my favourite one, but hey, I'm just happy to see more Big Finish vinyls actually released this time round, after the sheer popularity of the previous 2 releases from earlier this year. Now, first off, a little bit of technical information. This release is in fact exclusive to HMV stores throughout the UK. It is limited edition to 1,250, 250 of which were in fact sold on the HMV website. You could order it directly. They do in fact have free delivery on vinyl records as well, which is brilliant. The recommended retail is $19.99, and basically if you were worried about not being able to track this down in stores, you would have been able to order it from there. The reason why I say it would have been able to is because on the day of release this is in fact completely sold out. However, you could pre-order it in advance. For those of you that have gone into stores, of course the other 1,000 were distributed throughout the UK, meaning that this time around it is a lot easier to find these, meaning that there shouldn't be much of a struggle and there shouldn't be as much negativity from the previous releases as well, which is always a good thing. I guess that the main struggle will come later this month when we see the release of the Zygon Hunt in select Sainsbury's stores throughout the UK, as that one is a little bit harder to find. Of course, previously in this series I have already reviewed Energy of the Daleks, which was the first vinyl in this series, along with Infamy of the Zaros, and much like with the Infamy review, basically in this video I'm not really going to be discussing the actual episode because the story itself was only in fact released last year in 2017 in a box set or in a singular release, and I've already done a whole review dedicated to that story. So this review is solely going to be around the actual vinyl itself, along with maybe how my thoughts have kind of progressed since that original listen last year, and basically having a little bit of an updated review to some extent, or maybe even a brief review of my general thoughts of the actual story without going too much into depth. For those of you that haven't been lucky enough to track this down in stores, fear not, there is also a few other formats available. You can in fact still order it in this rather nice looking collector's book. This is still in stock on the Big Finish website, as I said, due to the physical release only being released last year. The physical edition is £45 and the download version is £30. It does in fact feature all of the stories that were released last year, so 3 of which including some behind the scenes in there as well. I do believe a documentary about Big Finish. So yeah, that is a very good pickup and it is very pretty. However, if you are somebody of which that is solely interested in just this story, seeing the 10th Doctor meet the Ice Warriors, then you can also pick up this release on physical CD simply by itself for only $10.99, and the download is only $8.99. Much like with every vinyl review, I am going to kick off this video with a little bit of a product review, taking a look at the actual physical release itself and kind of what you get for your money. And it is very pretty, as per usual. As you all know by now, I am pretty much getting addicted to Doctor Who vinyls, and it is a little bit unhealthy. Taking a close look at the actual vinyl product itself, generally the actual layout is pretty much exactly the same to the previous 2 releases in this series, being Energy of the Daleks and Infamy of the Zaros, where it's pretty much used exactly the same cover art to the original 2017 release. However, the majority of the components and elements have just been altered a little bit in order to suit the style of the vinyl sleeve cover a little bit more, as opposed to a more sort of landscape CD cover. So normally the Ice Warrior will be a little bit smaller, and I do believe from what I can remember, Rose and the Doctor would be around here or something like that. So this time around it's just been widened a little bit, which is rather nice. I do quite like it. I think that the thing with this cover is it is a lot more simplistic compared to that of Infamy of the Zaros, which is a lot more busy and it doesn't really look as effective as this one. So starting to take a look at the top, the major difference is of course the brand new Series 11 Jodie Whittaker logo in the sort of orangey yellow typeface. It does look very nice and does stand out actually on this release quite a lot, probably because of the darker colours in the background. BBC logo at the very top, full cast audio drama, starring David Tennant and Billie Piper, and then towards the side, of course, we do get Rose and the 10th Doctor, no doubt from one of these Series 2 promotional photo shoots or something like that. And then we, of course, get the image of the Ice Warrior, presumably the commander from the story itself, of the planet in the background there. Majority of the rest of the cover pretty much has this green frost coming up the side, almost some freezer compartments up here at the top, which is no doubt the actual setting of Cold Star from the story itself, along with a few sparks and things around the sides. Yeah, it is very nice, very green looking. And of course, at the very bottom, you do get Cull Vengeance by Matt Fitton, then featuring Maureen Beattie, Sean Biggerstaff, and of course Nicholas Briggs, along with the Big Finish logo there at the very bottom, saying Big Finish, we love stories, as per usual. So yeah, a very nice cover, rather nice and simplistic. At the very side, you just get Doctor Who, Cull Vengeance, and full cast audio drama at the very bottom. And then, of course, on the back, once again, a similar sort of layout to usual, where once again we have the Doctor Who Series 11 logo. At the very top, some information about the actual story itself, some casting information, the unique number for this release, mine of which being 401 out of 1,250. It's in fact been printed on as opposed to handwritten on, unlike the Energy of the Daleks vinyl. I don't know what it is, I just like when it's handwritten a little bit more because it just makes it feel a little bit more personal or something like that. I don't know, I'm weird. Then along the side we get some company information, including a little bit about Big Finish, where you can follow them on social media, along with a rather nice image of the Ice Warrior at the top there as well. Due to this being a singular vinyl release, much like every other Big Finish release so far in this series, it is in fact just a standard sleeve cover, so it doesn't open up or anything like that, unlike normal vinyls. And then we do have on the inside this rather nice sleeve cover that does in fact protect the actual vinyl. So on one side you get the Doctor Who logo once again, along with some production credits with the very talented people that did work on this release, along with some thanks at the very bottom. And then on the very back we do get a little bit of a production notes section, including an image of David Tennant taken, I do believe, in the recording of these stories. Then we get a little bit of information from the writer, being Matt Fitton, along with the executive producers Nicholas Briggs and Jason Hay-Gallery. Once again, this is a rather nice green colour to sort of in keep with the theme of this actual vinyl. And speaking of green, of course, naturally moving on to the vinyl itself, the thing that we've all been waiting for. Here we have the lovely colour of the vinyl for this release, which is visually stunning, to be honest. Once again, it's not just a green colour, it is almost a little bit translucent, and it does look incredibly cool. As you can see, we do get the Doctor Who logo there, Side B Part 2, and then on the opposite side we get Side A Part 1, which is very nice. Yeah, I do rather like this green colour, and to be honest, I'm looking forward to see how the orange Zygon Hunt one is. I'm wondering if it's the same translucent effect or something like that, but there's just something about having a different colour for each individual release that makes it feel really unique, and I just really like it. I don't really know why, but it does look pretty cool, and hey, worth the money, I suppose, even if some people think not. But overall, for the physical product itself of the Cull Vengeance 180g green heavyweight vinyl, I think that naturally, if you're a fan of Doctor Who vinyls, then this is once again another one to add to your collection. And at a time, you get a really nice collection of different Big Finish stories, hopefully in all different colours as well, once they release a few more in the future. So far, we've had a blue one, a yellow one, now we have a green one, the next one's an orange one, hopefully we get a red one in the future, that'd be quite nice. I am just rather excited about this series, and I don't particularly know why. I just like the variety, but I think that generally my only little issue would be it would be nice to have a little sort of leaflet on the inside of the actual vinyl itself that has a digital downloadable code, because normally when I buy vinyls from HMV, such as say band music or something like that from a certain artist, normally it does come with a little sort of code. You can download a digital version of the album, so it would be nice to have a similar version to this. Considering that this is £20, it is theoretically the most expensive version of Cull Vengeance, where you get to buy it singly, so I think it would be nice to have a download on there, giving the listener the opportunity to kind of download a digital formatted version from the Big Finish website. Naturally, that will then get customers onto the actual website itself, meaning that they can explore more of the different releases, and I just think that it would be a nice thing to do, kind of to engage in the different formats, including the digital media as well. That would be quite nice. But yeah, that is really my only complaint. I think that generally the cover art is nice, and it is a lot more effective than the infamy of the Zaros vinyl, and looking forward to see the presentation of the Zygon Hunt vinyl, hopefully later this month. So yeah, overall, really nice, and I definitely recommend it if you're a fan of Doctor Who vinyls. That's really it for the actual product itself. Generally, overall, I do really like it. I think that if you actually see this in stores, I do recommend picking it up, because it will no doubt be quite rare in the future, much like the previous releases in this line. And generally, there's just something about vinyl that is a little bit nicer than CDs. You can kind of go and pick up a CD from HMV and it's all fair enough, you know, you just have it in a little bag in a cheap plastic case. But with this, it kind of feels a little bit more nicer, a little bit more retro. For those of you that like vinyls, you'll of course know exactly where I'm coming from with this. Yeah, there's just something about picking up vinyl vinyls and buying them and kind of adding them to your collection and kind of seeing your amount of vinyls almost increase. It's just something really nice and something I definitely recommend sort of looking into, maybe buying a few Doctor Who releases of in the future in case you haven't already. Taking a look at the actual story itself, I'm going to put that down before I damage the cover because that will be incredibly annoying. Generally, I think the thing with Cold Vengeance, as I previously said, I've already done a review actually going into depth in the actual story, and I have mentioned in previous new series adventure reviews that currently with Big Finish they're kind of just testing the boundaries when it comes to the new series and kind of just doing some basic adventures. And it must be said, I think that so far both volumes 1 and volume 2 of the 10th Doctor adventures have been pretty standard when it comes to actual stories. I think that they are very much accurate to the new series. I think if you are a fan of the 2006 Doctor Who and like the relationship between Rose and the 10th Doctor, then this box set is essentially perfect because everything about it pretty much encapsulates what 2006 Doctor Who is about. It is incredibly fast-paced, you do have a lot of witty comments from the 10th Doctor, and generally it is a nice new series adventure. The narrative isn't necessarily too complex or anything like that, and it is a really nice linear story, nothing really too timey-wimey, but naturally at the same time, if you are an experienced Big Finish fan that have gone on to experience some of the more in-depth adventures, such as say the big massive box sets of Dark Eyes or Doom Coalition or Ravenous, or have even gone on to some of the further spin-offs such as the Gallifrey series or Jago and Lightfoot or Bernie Summerfield, naturally you would have experienced sort of more complex and interesting storytelling, something of which that if you go back to listen to this one, you may be a little bit let down simply because the narrative is in fact quite simplistic. So it would be nice generally if Big Finish did do a little bit more of an experimental 10th Doctor series in the future, something of which that is more similar to the early days of Big Finish that have more experimental stories, generally doing stuff that they wouldn't be able to do in the actual TV show, because to me I think that Big Finish are still yet to mainly put their stamp on the new series of 10th Doctor adventures, and I think that it would be nice to either see a few adventures with the 10th Doctor by himself, maybe sort of going over the Time Lord Victorious from the later half of his era, or maybe even doing a few different TARDIS teams, maybe having, say, the 10th Doctor, Rose and Mickey, and doing a few adventures set between like Rise of the Cybermen and Girl in the Fireplace. That would be quite cool, or something like that. I just feel that they need to do a few more experimental stuff, because I feel like now you've done a few simple ones for sort of the more newer listeners to Big Finish. Now you get to surprise them and do something that Big Finish is really known for, being really experimental and interesting storytelling that is far more than the actual TV show stories. I think that discussing the actual vinyl itself, unlike some of the previous releases, such as, say, the Energy of the Daleks one, it was really nice hearing Tom Baker's voice on vinyl because it is really bombastic and loud, and he has definitely a very loud presence, and it works perfectly on vinyl, much like how I experienced previously this year in the Record Store Day City of Death release as well. But the unusual thing with Cold Vengeance is I kind of feel there's nothing about it that is absolutely amazing in sound design. If anything, I don't think there's any moments that really stand out. The only ones I could either sort of say slightly stand out are of course the Doctor Who theme. That sounds excellent on vinyl, much like how it always does, and generally the actual sound design for the story is nice. It's good, it's got some nice interesting music, however, as I said, nothing too stand out, nothing that really makes me think, whoa, the sound design on this episode is really good. I think that the Ice Warrior voices sound really good on this release. Of course, Nicholas Briggs does both the standard Ice Warriors and the Commander in the story as well. I do believe it is called Commander Slan. Let's have a look. Lord Haskell and Commander Slan, of course, are both played by Nicholas Briggs, and he has a really nice variety between kind of the more hissing classic style Ice Warrior and the more new series Ice Warrior that we got to see in Cold War that is a little bit more kind of deeper in voice tone, so it is nice to have a little bit of variety in there. That said, I think that at the same time there's just something about vinyl that makes the experience of listening to an audio drama adventure a little bit different to, say, listening to it via the Big Finish app, or listening to it digitally via an MP3 download, or even listening to the CD. There's just something nice about being able to put on a vinyl and then letting the story run its course, and sort of being able to sit in your room and do something, sort of maybe tidy or something like that, just whilst the story plays in the background. It is quite nice, and I do feel like it's a little bit more of a relaxing way to listen to Big Finish, and something of which that I maybe recommend for stories that you've listened to before. Of course, I've been in the case where I've both listened to Infamy of the Zaros and Cold Vengeance before, literally last year when I reviewed it, therefore I kind of already knew what the story was about, and buying these vinyl releases was solely down to the fact of it is a pretty vinyl, it's a pretty colour, and I want it for the collection, because that is all it is. The physical product is what I wanted, not necessarily to actually experience the story for the first ever time, because I've already listened to it before. The episode itself is a rather nice science fiction space adventure. Of course, we see the Doctor and Rose land on almost this colony spaceship that is basically the equivalent of a massive freezer shop where it stores all of the frozen food for the nearby Earth colonies, and it turns out that when they created this sort of freezer place called Cold Star, it turns out that the Ice Warriors are in fact excavated within the ice and plonked into this Cold Star facility, and then eventually over time they've unhatched and they want to in fact have vengeance on the planet below, because they've in fact nicked the planet from the Ice Warriors. So we kind of have a moment in this story where the situation turns round and we have the revelation that maybe the Ice Warriors aren't the main villain, and it is in fact the humans on the colony below that have essentially took the planet from the original inhabitants, being the Ice Warriors. Overall, I think that this is one of the turning point stories. I loved Sword of the Cavalier in Volume 2 because it was experimental. Infamy of Zaros was rather nice and self-contained and almost a little bit self-loving, the way they almost broke the fourth wall. I loved the idea of them using sort of this alien show in order to kill people on the planet below. So I really do think that Volume 2 had something about it where it is gradually aiming towards the more normal Big Finish story that we know and love, more so than Volume 1 with the 10th Doctor and Donna, that was playing it very safe and was pretty much standard new series storytelling that we have seen in a few box sets across the board when it comes to the Big Finish sort of license when they got the new series a few years back. So yeah, I do think that in the future for the 10th Doctor Volume 3 it would be nice to see a lot more experimental stuff in there. Just a few things that makes it slightly more shocking. But that said, Cold Vengeance is a really nice listen. As I say, I do definitely recommend picking it up if you see this vinyl in store for certain, if you are a collector, because as I said, there's just something about vinyls that look incredibly pretty. But do be warned, this story, just because it's been released on vinyl, isn't one of the best Big Finish stories of all time. If anything, I do think that it is quite a standard episode, and I just want to see more interesting vinyl releases in the future from sort of a wider catalogue of Big Finish stories, because so far we are rather self-contained to the 10th Doctor and 4th Doctor adventures, because so far from the 4 releases, 2 have been 4th Doctor related and 2 of them have been 10th Doctor. Just briefly summing up the format of this release, of course, with it being a vinyl, for those of you that are unaware, from what I understand, a vinyl pretty much has a maximum of around half an hour on each side, meaning that 1 hour stories are perfect for releases like this, because you only need one singular vinyl. However, now that it has been proven from these past 3 releases, and no doubt when Zygon Hunt is eventually released later this month, probably that release will be popular as well, it would be nice to see Big Finish and the Demon Music Records group actually sort of expand their catalogue a little bit more and maybe do a few double LPs, because that then widens the horizons as to what they can actually put onto vinyl. You can pretty much put any monthly range release onto vinyl by that point, because that will be around 2 hours long, and generally I just want to see a few more classic adventures in there that aren't necessarily 4th Doctor related. I think that a series of which that will be rather interesting to put onto vinyl would be the 8th Doctor and Lucy Miller adventures, partly because I've not really experienced many of them so far, also because of course Lucy is returning next year for the Big Finish 20th anniversary, and also I think that some of those episodes are in fact 1 hour long anyway, so work in a singular vinyl format, but it may be nice to have an episode such as say Blood of the Daleks or Human Resources in the vinyl format, maybe Blood of the Daleks especially, simply because it actually has Hilly Atwell in the credits, so that kind of looks good on the front of the vinyl I suppose. The more that I do think that are a little bit more unlikely, it will be great to see J Gun Lightfoot Forever on vinyl, or even any J Gun Lightfoot story. I would love that personally, because you know, then it would mean that this release will be popular as well and people will want to track it down. It will be a great way to get into J Gun Lightfoot. And yeah, just a few more singular releases, or maybe even a few more 7th Doctor adventures, or even a 6th Doctor vinyl. That would be amazing. Have like a multicoloured vinyl print. That would be lovely. Please, Big Finish, do more classic stories, and don't just rely on new series ones, because I can guarantee you by this point that if you advertise it to your fans at Big Finish, then they will go out and buy it if it's exclusive to HMV stores, because now that we've got 4 releases, and quite a lot of us have collected all 4 so far, we kind of can't stop now until the series ends So no matter what, the releases are going to be popular, and if you do have doubt of them being popular, maybe just lower the production run a little bit to maybe 750 or something like that. Maybe even a Torchwood main range story. That'd be quite interesting, because I know that they're around a 1 hour long thing as well. So yeah, what would you like to see on vinyl from the Big Finish catalogue? I'll be very interested to know. But overall, for the Doctor Who Cold Vengeance limited edition to 1250 green heavyweight 180g vinyl, exclusive to HMV stores throughout the UK, I think that this is definitely worth picking up if you've collected the previous 2 releases so far. Also, if you are new to Big Finish and want to get into it somehow, and if you're a new series fan, I recommend this. And I also recommend checking out my review of this story as well from a year or so ago, where I go into the elements of the story a little bit more. But yeah, generally overall, nice release. Do recommend it, although just be warned, it's not one of the most amazing Big Finish stories that have been released so far. So yeah, that is that for this review. Stay tuned for more vinyl reviews in the future. Of course, very recently I have been reviewing the silver screen soundtracks, the original television soundtracks for the music compositions as seen in the Second Doctor story, The Invasion, as well as the 20th anniversary special, The 5 Doctors. So those are coming out, or if not are already out, very, very soon. Then also do stay tuned for the second Big Finish review this month of other vinyl releases, including the Zygon Hunt limited edition vinyl that is exclusive to Sainsbury's stores, that hopefully, fingers crossed, I will be able to track down, because I really want that one, because I've not actually listened to that episode before, much like how a similar case with Energy of the Daleks, which was earlier this year, as I hadn't listened to that one either. So other than that, there'll be more reviews coming in the future. Of course, Doctor Who Series 11 is pretty much here now, so there'll be videos covering that soon in the near future, along with your standard Big Finish audio dramas, book reviews, product reviews, and so much more. So yeah, lots coming in the future, and I hope you will all follow me on the journey with me. So yeah, thanks for watching. I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.